My name is Nick Hodgson. I live in London, and for the past 3 years I've been making a modest living out of landscape and garden photography. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got into photography, how my current practice is evolving, and the plans I have for my research project. I used to work in financial services marketing for 30 years, holding various board-level roles. The work was exciting, pressurised and well paid, but I needed a new challenge in my life, and after a period of reflection, I decided that I wanted to spend as much time as possible behind the camera lens, so I quit my job. My photographic journey started over 35 years ago, when I went to the Isle of Skye, armed with a Kodak Instamatic, and attempted to shoot some landscapes. The results were fairly basic, but gave me encouragement. I bought a decent camera, read around the subject, and discovered a landscape photographer called Charlie Waite, whose work I really liked. And then I read that he'd been inspired by someone called Ansel Adams. Given these were pre-internet days, I had to do my research in newsagents, bookshops, and libraries. I read up on Adams and his zone system, and closely studied his images. I moved to London from the West Country at the end of the 1980s, and this gave me greater access to places such as the Hayward Gallery and the Photographers Gallery, allowing me to check out other photographers' work. And meanwhile, I continued to experiment with my landscapes. Things were then put on hold for quite a few years as I had a young family. As they grew older, we spent a lot of holiday time in France, and through photography, I learned to love the Luberon region of Provence, with its natural and spoilt beauty and stunning light that had inspired the likes of Van Gogh, Gauguin, and Cézanne. I also started going on photography trips with my son during half-term breaks, with visits to Scotland and Wales. I mentioned this during social chit-chat with business colleagues, and this led to one contact of mine buying this image of Dornoch Beach in northeast Scotland for his boardroom wall. When I made my career change 3 years ago, it coincided with my wife being commissioned to write a gardening-based book called Urban Flowers. I was asked by the publishers to provide a series of step-by-step images of tasks, which sat alongside the main photography for the book, taken by Jason Ingram. Jason was really helpful, and I became his unofficial assistant, watching, listening, and learning. I was already interested in garden design, appreciating its calming aesthetic, so I started to research and shoot gardens. I've now had work published by the English Garden magazine and by the RHS Members magazine, as well as on various gardening websites. So how would I describe my current practice? Well, I learnt some time ago that just because I like a certain photographer doesn't mean I have to replicate their style. For me, the challenge is to find through experimentation my own style and to continually try and evolve it. I do like juxtaposition, contrast, and sometimes even jarring conflict in an image. And I like the themes of abandonment and decay, such as these images that I've taken. My proposed research project is a study of free mining in the Forest of Dean. It's one of Britain's most ancient forests. Originally used as a royal hunting ground, situated on the English side of the southern border with Wales. Free mining is unique to the Forest of Dean. It's an ancient right of work that allows local people to work their own mines and sell the output. To qualify, you have to be at least 21 years of age, have worked in a mine for a year and a day, and crucially, have been born in the local area known as the Hundred of St Brevels. These self-employed miners mainly dig for coal, which is sold for both domestic and industrial use. Stone, iron ore, and ochre is also still mined. The future looks challenging for many free miners. Since the local hospital closed its maternity unit, there are fewer births in the area, so the future supply of eligible people is likely to be quite small. It's unglamorous work and can be dangerous, which will put off some of the next generation. And there are environmental issues, with DEFRA's clean air strategy putting pressure on the future use of coal burning in the UK. But talking to the free miners, they are undeterred. Indeed, they're fiercely committed to their work, wanting to uphold an ancient tradition which they see as an integral part of the local culture in this small corner of England. The conflict posed by maintaining traditions whilst being challenged by present-day issues resonates with me. I'm not sure at the moment what conclusions I'll reach during this project. It's part photo documentary, part landscape, part portraiture. And as I've never really photographed people before, it'll be challenging for me. But this is the area I want my work to progress towards. My current thinking is to shoot landscapes in and around abandoned and working mine entrances, to shoot inside the working mines, and engage with the mining community past and present, taking some portraiture. The forest is littered with disused mine workings, reflecting a time when it was a significant means of local employment, and I should therefore be able to produce a body of landscape images focusing on industrial decline and abandonment, a pet theme of mine. I've researched other photographers who have tackled mining as a subject matter. Much of it has a narrative of danger and exploitation. Earl Dotter has produced thoughtful bodies of work, mainly shot in the mining communities of the Appalachians in the US. As part of his work, he went underground to tackle the danger at the coalface experienced by the miners, shooting in monochrome, which adds to the bleakness of the job. Looking at his images, one feels the imbalance between danger and rewards. Clearly there was a lot of exploitation taking place in return for the weekly paycheck and basic living conditions, and not forgetting the sinister undertones of the heavy price of ill health and disability. Ken Herman is a young Danish photographer who has visited the mines in India and shot beautiful colour portraits with such dignity. I'm continuing to seek out other work that I can use as a reference point for my own practice, and I've already found the MA is teaching me to think and analyse more critically. One issue I'm continually thinking about is the split between colour and monochrome images. I suspect this may remain unresolved for some time. But why this subject matter? Well, my great-grandfather was a Forest of Dean free miner. I remember him very well as he lived to almost 90, and I remember him talking to me about life as a free miner, so he is constantly at the back of my mind as I work on this project. I hope this family connection helps give my project validity and, if ultimately deemed successful, credibility. Having this personal link with the forest has already given me a starting point to build relationships with the free miners. But I know that not all of them will necessarily be that keen to be photographed, and so far I have not attempted to do so. I'll need to tread carefully, both literally and metaphorically. I'm conscious that the miners will need to feel reassured with my motives and how I intend to use the final body of work before they give me the sort of access that I would ideally require. I've already contacted the local history society, and they have offered to help with my research. And I want to think about the potential of holding an exhibition of my final major project somewhere in the Forest of Dean, possibly at the venue where the free miners hold their association meetings. So to summarise, I feel that there has been a natural progression in my work, but I now need to be really challenged. I've chosen a deliberately tight subject, but with sufficient breadth to hopefully produce a set of images which can tell a story about the people and the place. And given there is a tension point or the contradiction between maintaining traditions in the face of the environmental challenges of the future, I don't yet know what the final outcome of this project will be. But that's, in part, what attracts me to it.